So today we're talking about working in international PR, and I want to set the stakes a little bit. So I had a client one time that had a new product coming out that they were really excited about, and they had had a process where, because the company was primarily an English speaking company, they wanted to put out their PR materials and their product announcements in English, and then when the translations in other languages would come out, then those would go out, which is a good process for a lot of reasons, except for in this case, they had named the new product essentially what a code word was that the Nazis used for poison gas during the Holocaust. And so this product had been announced in English with this name. And then obviously immediately people in Europe were like, oh my God, like we can't name the product this, we have to stop. And so we put a stop to those communications going out. We reached out to a lot of press and said, hey, we need to adjust this. This is going to be a change. You know, we called on our media partners there and said we need to pull this back. And they obliged, right? They were happy to and kind of understood the circumstances. And so the point here is just to show that when you're working internationally and across languages, the stakes are really high. It's not simply about maybe you don't use this word or that word, or something doesn't sound just right in a language. You potentially could offend someone, or you could unwittingly use a word or a term that could be very flammable. So with that in mind, let's talk today about working internationally and across offices, and start with the obvious. I'm from the US, the southern US, and Ricardo and Mariana, you're both from Brazil, but working in the US. So maybe you could start and just tell me quickly, how'd you end up in the US doing communications primarily in an English speaking country?
You can start, Ricardo.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think, like many, I want a slice of the American dream. It's just as simple as that. And I came to Chicago for grad school. And then, a job and a relationship leads to one thing leads to another. And it's been 17 years now, and I'm an American citizen. And I'm both an American and a Brazilian. I've learned to have multiple identities and to be comfortable with that idea. So yeah, that's given me the opportunity to work in these cultural settings and have all kinds of experiences, successful and others not so much, in terms of translating and localizing and adapting content. So yeah, I've had my share of just projects and things that I had to really think about and put on my Brazilian shoes, and then other times put on my American shoes. So it's been a journey, yeah, learning journey.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of a longer path till I got here to the US. I am from Brazil, I'm from Brasilia. Studied there journalism, worked there for a long time, covering politics, and then I got this opportunity to work in Germany. I was learning German at that time. I think it's a it's a lifelong thing, German learning. But then I moved to Germany, worked for Deutsche Welle, this German broadcast, and worked there for the Latin American department for almost 5 years. But honestly, like working with different kinds of all other departments from different countries, and as a journalist again. And then I moved to the US after I met my husband, who's American, and we decided to live here in Chicago. And then I ended up at SE10 again, started working on Latin American on the Latin American market with clients that have business in Latin America. And here I am. It's been what, 7 years?
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, so, working at SE10, we're international, right? So we have an office in Chicago, London, and in Singapore. And most of our clients are international companies and corporations, and most of the work we do is global PR work, right? So we do have some clients that only operate in their region, but for the most part, we're dealing with international businesses, and we're working as global teams across offices on global PR campaigns. And so, digging into that process a little bit, I've been asked a lot of times, what does it mean to be in international PR? And right, so there's some cultural sensitivities you need to be aware of, that we'll get into, but first off, one thing I noticed when I started working internationally is process is a big part of it, and not something that a lot of people talk about, but you really have to have good processes and management and project management in place to be able to work in 7 or 8 languages at the same time. And Ricardo, you have a lot of experience with the process of working internationally. So can you tell me what that's like?
Yeah, of course. Process is really extremely important. All the stakeholders, everyone involved needs to be part of developing that process and agreeing on that process and following that process. I feel like we really need to stick to that when you're working multiple countries, multiple languages, and like you said, with multiple cultures, right? And sensitivities all over, all around. So in my experience, it works better when we all agree on that, on those steps that we take, taking care of. Primarily, we start with the English, and the English is the original, perhaps, language, in the source language in most circumstances for American companies. And then we work with people in country, in different countries, to adapt, to localize, to really culturally translate that content, which could involve rewriting, completely rewriting an article, or rewriting or rethinking a campaign that was perhaps developed in the US, and then we need to adapt it completely to a different country and make sure that it speaks to the people who live there. And how do we do that? We work with people in the country to make sure that that message resonates, to make sure that we're not using any words we shouldn't. And so, yeah, it's extremely fun to work in those projects, to see how content transforms into a different content, and takes a different shape as we move from the source of language of the material into a different countries and regions of the world.
Yeah.
I just
So
wanted to add to that, this process in working with local people. And language is so fascinating because it's so dynamic. We've moved from Brazil, what, like 10 years ago, and the language is already, like, I feel sometimes when I go back, it's different in many ways. Like, there is a lot of new words, especially because of technology, and new words, the way people say things, the way people write about things. So it's not something like static, that it is and it's that. And so that's why it's important for us always to think about how to literally translate that message to that target audience.
Interesting. So, I mean, Ricardo, what maybe you can walk us through some of the steps, right? Because I'm not sure everyone would realize what it entails to send a piece of content through a channel. So let's say we have a content hub, or like a digital magazine. Somebody gives you a piece in English. Now, there's going to be a lot of people involved, right? With translation, approvals, checks, and balances. And walk us through like one piece of content, what you might go through to get that published in 8 different languages.
Yeah, that's what we do. We do have content hubs and manage different websites in multiple languages, right? So each of that each article that goes into that is going to be vetted really by someone, preferably who is in the country that or in the region at least of the world that where the message is gonna be promoted. And we just need not only the translation.
Yeah. So you send it to a translation agency first, unless it's a language you speak. So first you're going to the translation agency and it's coming back to you, right?
Yeah.
And
So
then, okay.
we trust translation agency partner to do a good job at that first translation. And then what we do with that translation, that translation is going to be vetted in country with our clients and other people. So not only how the language is presented, but because we are industrial for the most part, PR company, we deal with very sensitive and very technical content that needs to be vetted for by a product specialist in the country. Make sure that all those terms that we're using are used in the country, used in that language. They're current, like to Mariana's point, whether they're current. The language, all languages evolve continuously. So yeah, and then finally, we would get to a final version of that content that can go public, that can go live.
Yeah. So I know, one thing we've done to ensure a process goes smoothly is we create playbooks for clients, right? We'll just call it a playbook, and
Yeah.
clearly delineating, here's the person that first approves in English, the product specialist, and then a marketing manager. And then when it comes back from translation in different languages, who does it go to as the product specialist in that country? Then who does the language check in that country? Then when the content comes back to us, we are triple checking that, let's say for all 7 or 8 different languages, that if it's a press kit, that the actual French documents are in the French press kit and the Spanish ones are in the Spanish press kit, right? Because if you're going to blast out a press kit or globally for 8 different languages with images, FAQs, Word docs, there's just a lot of process ensuring that machine goes smoothly, right? So, I mean, Mariana, you work with these playbooks, right? I mean, do you think you use that playbook every time you go through this exercise?
Yeah, no, sure. It's always important. I think one thing of the process that we're talking is about like organization too, right? Like me making sure that all the steps were clicked. And because some of the languages, I mean, I can, me personally, like I'm good with the languages of one of the products that we create, but sometimes we are dealing with a language we cannot even read, like you don't know what is in there. So it's crucial that we have this process in place. And yeah, a playbook, a place, a guide for us to make sure that we are delivering a good service.
Sure.